Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, writer-producer Bill Odenkirk talks about losing it in Rome.
The truth is, by the time we left on this trip, she was more or less an ex-girlfriend, although I didn't really acknowledge that yet. And by the time we got there, we're exhausted. We get to the hotel room. She heads to the washroom. I drop onto the bed and turn the TV on. So an important point I should mention here is that this is 2001, and we arrived on September 11th. I turn the TV on, and all the news and all the imagery come to me all at once.
Today on the show, writer and producer Bill Odenkirk talks about losing it in Rome. Stay close.
Hey, it's Bill Odenkirk, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Fan of the show for over 13 years, or you're a brand new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the show last week with comedian Dana Gould. Dana told a story about meeting Vampira, essentially. He met Piggy Demon, who was the drummer for Rob Zombie, who helped him find Vampira, which was Myrna Nurmi, find a place to live. Does this make sense? It should make sense. We're talking about Dana Gould here, you guys, and he's a fantastic comedian telling a really great story about meeting his hero, Piggy Demon, and then helping find a house for another one of his heroes, Vampira. So go back, you guys. Listen to the show last week with Dana Gould. But not today. Stick with me now, because today I'm re-airing a show from writer Bill Odenkirk. Bill Odenkirk, holy cow, what a talent. He has written for The Simpsons and Futurama and Mr. Show. Of course, he's the younger brother of Bob Odenkirk, who, of course, is famous for Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad and everything else. But the point is, Bill Odenkirk is just as talented and super interesting. And today he's going to tell you a story about losing it in Rome. So it's really funny. We recorded this just last year, really, in 2022, and I'm bringing it back to you guys for an episode I call Still Storyworthy, because I'm a little bit busy with my other show, My Life in 3 Songs. So I'm re-airing some of the shows from Storyworthy over the past 13 years, and I do hope you guys enjoy it. Meantime, please do go over to mylifein3songs.com and listen to my show, My Life in 3 Songs. I talk to comedians about the songs in their life that have impacted them. Not necessarily their favorite songs, but songs that made an impression on them, songs that impacted them, and songs that really tell you a lot about the comedian and where they grew up. This week I have on the show Jackie the Joke Man Martling, and if you go back in the catalog, I recently recorded with Wendy Liebman and Patton Oswalt and Jamie Kennedy, so please go over there to mylifein3songs.com and check out that show. Meantime, right now, get ready for Bill Odenkirk talking about losing it in Rome. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for Bill Odenkirk.
Okay. Well, thank you, Christine, for that elaborate introduction here. So this is obviously a trip about a trip to Rome with a girlfriend. And I have to start by saying that over the course of the previous year before this trip, I had survived cancer treatment. It was about a year of weekly interferon injections, and it had weakened me. But I was surviving quite well. And once I finished that and kind of recovered, we planned this trip about a month before leaving. But over that time, our relationship, which was not very good, got worse and worse. It went from bad to worse to what the fuck are we doing? The truth is, by the time we left on this trip, she was more or less an ex-girlfriend, although I didn't really acknowledge that yet. Of course, we were living together because no bad relationship can be reach its true terrible potential unless you're living with the other person, where there's no space or no options and no way of undoing any of it without searching for rentals and moving vans and boxes and yelling at each other. So moving in with a girlfriend, this is just an aside, I think. Moving in with a girlfriend is like one of life's great mistakes. It's what I don't have a term for it, but I feel like there's people address some things in life like an experiment they're going to try, right? People go into huge things with this attitude and like, I'll try this and see if I like it. Like career choices, my career choice to go into chemistry, marriage or having children or tattoos, The truth is a lot of these things are not experiments at all. They're huge commitments that last forever, right? But the attitude is often, I'll see how it goes. No, you won't. This is it forever, pal. But our relationship was like in the third year of dying, basically. And in fact, a couple of days before we left on this trip, I should say, we had a big fight. Like, we didn't have big all out and out fights, but we did have a big one, which was very extraordinary. Mostly it was simmering anger and distrust and bitterness. But this was an out and out fight. And I went for a walk. I was so upset. I went for a walk and I was like, well, we have to cancel this trip, right? I mean, this is it. We've been headed in this direction, and this is kind of it, really. And now we're miserable at each other. But I talked myself into it. I talked myself into staying with it. I decided, that we'd go ahead with the trip anyways because, I figured she wasn't going to be able to have a trip like this ever again in her life. Probably. She didn't have much money. I did, fortunately, at this time. As I said, I was doing quite well. And I certainly wanted to see Rome. I didn't want to blow off the trip either. And we cared for each other enough, at least as fellow human beings. And I guess my thinking was, hey, we're both decent people. We'll make the best of it, right? As long as nothing happens to screw this up, we're going to go and enjoy it, and it'll be fine. And who knows, maybe it'll even be better than fine, right? And this was my first trip to Rome, by the way. I should throw that in. So we leave. LAX to Heathrow to Rome. You've been to Rome. It's a long haul to Europe. And by the time we got there, we're exhausted. We finally get to the hotel. We're exhausted. I'm starving, hungry. We check into the hotel. No sign of anything amiss. We get to the hotel room. She heads to the washroom. I drop onto the bed and turn the TV on. So an important point I should mention here is that this is 2001, and we arrived on September 11th.
No way!
Oh,
no.
I turn the TV on, and all the news and all the imagery come to me all at once. I should mention, too, this was a Spanish it was a Spanish station, whatever. That was tuned to on the TV. And so I'm hearing the reporter. I don't know what he's saying. Of course, it's in Spanish. And I'm seeing these buildings collapse. And initially I thought, wow, they must be doing demolition on buildings in, Brazil or something? If it's a Spanish, they look like modern buildings. But I remember way at the back of my mind, because I wasn't processing it. How would you process this properly, right? I'm hearing a Spanish reporter. I'm watching these modern buildings coming down. It looks like controlled explosions. They're taking down these towers. Back of my mind, it started to creep in. Those look like something I should know. It was very creepy feeling. I turned the channel, couple channels. I hit CNN.
Oh, thank God.
Everything came all at once. Everything. It was mind-boggling. Like for everyone, it just seemed to have no end, too. So I hear about the planes, I hear the towers, I hear about the other plane, Pennsylvania, I hear about the Pentagon, and like, are there nuclear bombs? Are there nuclear power plants under attack? I mean, my mind just went on beyond that. Once you hear what has happened, you're like, I don't know where this ends. Now, I know that everyone has a 9/11 story, and I respect everyone's has deep emotional ties to this date. So if you're listening to this, and I hope you are, I don't mean to make my thing sound in the processing of what happened on 9/11 as more important as anyone else's. But I'm sorry, you weren't also going through my crappy relationship at the time. So it's like kind of like the Titanic. If it was also on fire while it was sinking, you'd remember both, right? Yeah. You wouldn't be rooting for the water to put out the fire. You'd be like, these both suck. Anyways, we found out what was happening, and it turns out that the terrorists also knocked over my girlfriend's brain because she kept insisting that we get back to the United States immediately. Like, we just arrived in Rome. We got to get out of here. I mean, she was just in a total panic, and which I understand, but she was also her solution for it was like to get. You got to remember, all flights in the world to and from the United States are grounded at this point. And the only way back would be a ship, which I thought was insane, right? We'd have to get on a ship. What she was talking about. We're going to take a ship, and there's no way I'm getting on a ship, even in the absence of these attacks. I'm not getting on a ship. And where are we going to get a ship? We're in Rome. Anyways, and then a train across the United States because all the planes are grounded. And I figured if I'm going to die, I'll die in Rome. Right? That's great. That's fine. And actually, I thought we were perfectly safe there in Rome. I mean, why not? Why would this be any more dangerous than any other place? Certainly, maybe less than the United States. As long as nothing happened while we were in Rome, we were fine. Well, what did happen was a couple days, 3 days later, it was in all the newspapers that there was a plot discovered to send poison gas through the tunnels underneath the American embassy there in Rome. And by the way, our hotel was right across the street on the Via Veneto. Right across the street. You could see the American embassy across the street from where we were. Of course, we moved to another hotel that same day when we learned about this. It was down the street and upwind from the embassy. And it was a much nicer hotel, too, by the way. We found this nicer hotel. So I guess in the end, the terrorists didn't win in that regard. So we're in Rome, and we're sightseeing.
Wait, what is her urgency to get back to the United States?
It was I think it was just a general reaction to the panic of what happened in the United States.
But she didn't have children or anything.
No, we were single we were dating, but we didn't have kids or anything. There was no reason to get back to the United States.
Did you say those things to her? Like, honey.
I said, what I did say was, we're safe here in Rome, which of course, as I just told you, we weren't actually. There was this attack that was quite famous actually at the time that that particular embassy was targeted. So I don't know. I think it was a general reaction like, we just got to get out of here. We got to do something. We can't stay where we are. No place is safe, kind of, I think, it was her reaction to it. But that subsided. We decided to stay, obviously. And that was, thus began our very weird trip to Rome. But so the world events were dominating my thoughts, of course, as were the intergalactic issues of my relationship. Our first day on the trip, after our arrival, and all this had, we learned all this stuff. The next morning, we went to see the Colosseum. So we're there in this incredible, vast, historic structure. Everyone knows the Colosseum. It's beautiful and yet kind of horrific for what happened there at the same time. Basically, it's all you want in an experience on a trip anywhere, right? Is to be in a place like that and experience and to really, you're there and seeing it and touching it and everything. And I'm staring right at this, and all I can see, I swear, all I can see is the footage of those planes hitting the towers. It was bizarre. It's never happened to me ever in my life. But that was all I could. I turned to my girlfriend. I said, I can't see what was in front of us. I'm still just seeing the horror of yesterday. And it was everywhere I looked. That's all I could process. And as time went on, and this was set to be a long trip because we originally had planned to go to Rome and then go down the coast. We were going to go to, is it Corsica or whatever? Is that right? Whatever.
Yeah.
We were going to go some other places, but we canceled all of that and just locked down, stayed in Rome. And which I think was a wise decision, by the way. But a few days later, I was passing the American Embassy. As I said, it was sort of near where our new hotel was still. And I was passing the American Embassy, and there were flowers and signs outside, signs of support and whatnot right out in front of it. And the American Embassy there is vast. It's gigantic. I think it's like 2 huge old mansions,
really?
All of which are rung by, but there's this giant fence barred fence around it. So you can see into it. But it's enormous property. But there was all these signs and flowers outside. And I walked down further along the compound and stopped for a while to take some photos. And there was a sign of support that had been put up. And this was in front of the gates there. But it was like a side area. It wasn't like where most people stop to photograph or see anything. Kind of an obscure place. But I was hanging out there getting these photos of it. And I heard these police sirens. And I was like, wow, whatever's happening is a big deal because that's a lot of police. And I'm like, oh, shit. The embassy is under another attack or some sort of threat they perceived, and they're racing here. So I did the thing that anyone does. I stayed there because I wanted to see what the fuck was going on, right? What are all these police coming? They're coming. They're almost here. I can hear them. They're getting closer and closer and closer. And then 5 police cars pull up right in the curb, right in front of me. And this tall Italian cop gets out. And he's like, give me your papers. Come here. He took my driver's license and everything. Passport. It was me. They were coming for me.
They took your passport?
Well, they took it to examine and get a record of who I was and everything. I had stopped there for too long, and they were obviously watching the embassy very closely because of this terrorist attack that had been threatened. And I'm looking, there's all these police cars in front of me and all these cops getting out. And they took my information. I explained who I was, and that, I was clearly not a threat or anything, but they had my information. So I was hoping, of course, that nothing did happen to the embassy because they'd probably call me in at some point if it did. The problem was I just stayed, as I always do with a camera, I stayed too long to take photos. I'm trying to line everything up and be too meticulous. And I looked like I was really scoping the place out when I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was just being anal about my photos.
Oh my God.
And they gave me a good talking to. And they said, no more photos. No more. And I left. Basically was our only exchange. Everything had kind of basically become very threatening on this trip, and complicated by world events and, of course, my girlfriend's paranoia. And as time went on, I found myself eager to speak to other Americans. And honestly, I was eager to speak to actually anyone outside of our crappy relationship, which had maintained its shittiness in the form of my girlfriend becoming more and more dour and depressed and irritated by sightseeing. Okay? Yeah. The thing you do when you're in Rome, or you haven't given up on life, right? You go and sightsee, right?
Right.
I mean, if I'm going to die there, I don't know what she thought the threat was, obviously. I mean, it still irritates me. But I was, this was a testament to really not just wanting to connect to other Americans, but also just other people who were kind of semi-sane. And then one day I saw my opportunity. We were out on the Spanish Steps, as you mentioned. We were on the Spanish Steps, and I spotted an American I recognized because it was Antonin Scalia. the Supreme Court Justice.
Supreme Court Justice, yeah. He passed away, yeah.
Yes. Well, he gave me that look that famous people always give to everyone, which is, are you going to approach me? Yes, I'm that guy, right? And I didn't approach him because I thought about it for a moment, but I just left him alone. I guess my desire to speak to somebody couldn't overcome my hatred of constitutional originalism. He was kind of an asshole, and he's dead now, as you said. And I just thought, I'll leave him alone. Yeah. I didn't want to get into a discussion with Antonin Scalia here. So anyways, all I had was myself and my girlfriend, basically, on the trip. And here's the thing that makes it even worse, for me personally, because I don't mind being alone. I actually like it quite a lot. I'm perfectly happy to travel by myself, and I've done so many times without any regret that there's no one else there with all their attitude. And this woman I was with had exceeded all the emotional baggage limits on any trip. I don't know how the plane got off the ground with her on it, frankly.
Yeah.
But being in a bad relationship is shitty enough, as I'm sure everyone who's been in one can attest. You feel alienated from your life because you see the life and you imagine, and you're probably right, the life you could have if this damn thing would just end, right?
Yep.
But with what was going on in the outside world on top of it, I felt alienated from a huge portion of the human race, too, that would carry out attacks like this, or at least, be happy about this kind of thing happening. But we're all stuck, is kind of what I came to, is that we're all stuck with each other, and there's no other place for the human race to break up to, right? Other planets to go to. So many days later, we were headed back to the United States, and planes were flying again, obviously. At least the one we were on was flying. And we were even more miserable, I have to say. That was really one of the longest flights. It was twice as long flying back as it was getting to Rome.
How long were you there total?
We were there, I'm going to say 9 days, I think, because we were going to travel and get back, right? And we just stayed in Rome, as I said. And I knew it was over. We're sitting there on the plane. I really finally, Rome had confused, everything that had happened really finally made me go, this is really over. Yeah. And I was sitting on the plane next to her, that was all that was going through my mind. It was, of course, really sad, too. I wasn't happy about this. I was just, the misery of knowing you have to break up. Yeah. And, of course, we didn't just break up when we got back. That would be, of course, wise and easy, which is neither of us were wise or easy at the time. It was many weeks later that I killed this Frankenstein monster that we were a part of. But I'm leaving off a big part of this story, I realize, which I will summarize right now, which is that I don't know what the point of it is other than nothing is neat. Your life isn't neat. The world isn't neat. It doesn't really have to have a point. I guess you learn things is more really the point for me personally. And I guess through all the turmoil in the world and my personal life, I still somehow, this was what I took away, I actually enjoyed Rome. Part of me actually really genuinely loved it. Yeah. And I remember at the worst, I thought, I can't wait to get back here. Rome was great. I'm sorry if you had a bad experience there, but I just really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's stunning. It's beautiful. It's endlessly fascinating. The history, the buildings, the museums are great, really well run. I couldn't wait to get back to it. And so eventually I did meet another woman, and we got engaged, and we decided to get married in Rome, which we did. And it was beautiful. Sweet. It was a beautiful day, and we had a wonderful time there. And it certainly, reestablished that Rome is a great place to live. If you take nothing away from what I've just told you, Rome is a great place to go, as if you needed to be told.
Wasn't that a great story? I knew you guys would like it. And that's why I'm bringing back some of these stories from the past 13 years, because you might have heard it before, but I bet you forgot it. And if you haven't heard it, well, there you go. A brand new story. Evergreen. That's what we call it. Evergreen content. All right, you guys. Thank you again so much for supporting me here on Storyworthy. The next Story Smash is coming up on Saturday, November 25th. Danny Zucker will be there. Story Smash in Silver Lake. Don't miss the show. Go over to storysmashshow.com for tickets right now. Story Smash, Saturday, November 25th. God damn, it's a fun show, and I really think you guys will agree. All right, you guys, thanks again for listening to Storyworthy today. Head over to storyworthypodcast.com and join my mailing list. That would be fun. And I am, again, very grateful that you all out there are listening, especially to one of my biggest fans. Thank you, Dave Beechek. You're a great fan, and I really appreciate it. All right, you guys, one more time on behalf of the very talented Bob Odenkirk. My name is Christine Blackburn, saying make it a story-worthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy Podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.
Wells Fargo presents one of the surest ways to grow your money. A Wells Fargo CD account, where you can earn a 5.00% annual percentage yield on an 11-month term with a minimum opening deposit of $5,000. Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/CD rates to open a CD account and start growing your savings with us.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.